And then, of course, at the end, I was like, I don't know. I don't care. I don't even care.
Win pretty.
We've won 4 games now. 4 out of those 9 with overtime or with a last. Mic on. You can sing if you want. No. I'm not singing. Come on, Scotty.
I'm not doing it.
Come save the day.
I sang a lot last night and I got to preach.
Come save the day.
And I screamed at a television last night. Yesterday, not last night, yesterday afternoon.
Are you going for Oklahoma or what?
No, yesterday afternoon, I'm sorry. Baylor game. I was screaming at the television.
Right. I'm surprised you had anything left for last night.
Me too. How you doing? Sorry, I'm in your section.
I didn't hear any stress.
Oh, here I'll sit in the bass players. This is the proper bass players. I was just telling Kyle, Amber and I performed last night, so I'm already tired. And then I've got to preach, so I'm going to be pretty preserved. I appreciate y'all coming. Yeah, man.
evening. So if you haven't been here yet, by all means, we would love to have you this evening. We meet in here at 6 o'clock. So this is the practice for our children's Christmas program, which is coming up in a few weeks in December. Let's see. Youth, if you're going to the Baylor football game, they're meeting or leaving here at 1:30 on Saturday. So make sure you're here a little early so that they can get off on time. If you are planning on participating in our cantata, then they're practicing every Wednesday at 5:15. They've already started that process, so try to get here for that. And then doing Toys for Tots again this year. You probably saw a couple of boxes throughout the church and stuff like that. We love to have additional help if you want to do anything, but otherwise, if you could bring a toy, drop off a new unwrapped toy to bless the kids of Wharton County this year, that'd be wonderful. And then before we get going, as y'all know, Monday is Veterans Day. If you were a veteran, if you could please stand up for us so we can recognize you. Thank you all very much for your service. All right, I think that's good.
Dr. Steve Lyford, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you that do not know, Steve defended successfully his dissertation this past Wednesday and was immediately conferred doctor. I don't know how we're going to do that. We have to change the letterhead now. So. Okay, at this time, would you please stand for our call to worship? We'll sing the first verse of Crown Him with Many Crowns, hymn number 161. Okay. Crown Him with many crowns, the Lamb upon His throne. Hark how the heavenly anthem drowns the music on its own. Awake my soul and sing of Him who died for thee, and hail Him as thy matchless King through all eternity.
There's a tear off on the side. We'd love to hear from you so we can reach out and just tell you how wonderful it was to have you worship with us this morning. Right now, if you can, find somebody you haven't seen in a while, give them a hug, shake their hand, high five, whatever you want to.
Glory. I told her I may have to ask her 4 times. It's Lord. Yes, ma'am. We'd love to have her. Both of them, actually.
Yeah, Blair's like, oh, I'll try to talk to her.
Yes. We need more guys. I only girls right now.
Yeah.
All right, Yonki's going to pray for us.
Good morning, everybody. It looked like you're filling up the holes that were here the last several Sundays, and it's good to see everyone here. We have much to be thankful for in this nation, that we can still gather and worship God. Any prayer requests unspoken? Let's pray. Father, we come to you this morning, Lord, grateful that we can come together like believers and worship you. We give you the praise, the honor, and glory, Jesus and the Holy Spirit. And Father, we just thank you that you're here in our presence. Father, we will observe Veterans Day tomorrow, and we lift all those veterans to you. Pray that you'd bless them. Thank you for their service, God, and for their sacrifice. We pray pray for our nation, Father, that you could help turn it around, and I know you could, Lord. We pray for the sick and the hurting, all those that have lost loved ones. We just ask you, God, to minister to them and that your will would be done in their lives. Thank you again, Lord, that we can gather and worship. I lift Scotty to you as he brings your message, and the choir, Chris and Stephen. Bless them all, Lord, for their work, for we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Art. Our first hymn this morning is hymn number 504. We'll sing the first, second, and last verse of God Give Us Christian Homes. God give us Christian homes, homes where the Bible is loved and taught, homes where the Master's will is sought, homes crowned with beauty your love has brought. God give us Christian homes, God give us Christian homes. God give us Christian homes, homes where the Father is true and strong, homes that are free from light of wrong, homes where the joyous with love and song. God give us Christian homes, God give us Christian homes. God give us Christian homes, homes where the children are led to know Christ in his beauty who loves them so, homes where the altar fires burn and glow. God give us Christian homes, God give us Christian homes. Our next hymn is 605. We'll sing all three verses of Because I Have Been Given Much. Because I have been given much, I too must give. Because of thy great bounty, Lord, each day I live. I shall divide my gifts from thee with every brother that I see, who has the need of help from me. Because I have been sheltered, fed by thy good I cannot see another's lack, and I not share. My glowing fire, my loaf of bread, my roof safe shelter overhead, that each may be comforted. Because love has been lavished so upon me, Lord, all wealth I know that was not meant for me to hoard, I shall give love to those in need, shall show that love by word and deed. Thus shall my thanks be thanks indeed. I'll ask you to stand for the next two songs. The first one is Here's My Heart, and our last song this morning is My Living Hope.
Speak what is true. Here's my heart, Lord. Here's my heart, Lord. Here's my heart, Lord. Speak what is true. Speak what is true, 'cause I am bound, I am yours, I am loved, I'm made pure, I have life, I can breathe, I am healed, I am free, 'cause you are strong, you are sure, you are life, you endure, you are good, always true, you are light, breaking through. Here's my heart, Lord.
applause for that right there. Then came the morning that sealed the promise. Your very body began to ring out of the silence. The roaring lion declared the grave has no claim on me. Jesus yours is the victory.
Join me as we pray for our offering this morning. We magnify your name, O Lord, and we give you all the honor and all the glory. And we thank you for being such a good Father. We pray that the small amounts that we can give back to you and contribute for the expansion of your work and for the continuance of the preaching of your gospel may it be pleasing to you, and may it be a sweet fragrance to those that surround us and see us, and know that we are proclaiming that you are our Lord, our Savior, our Christ. We thank you for all your blessings. In Christ's name, amen.
Amen. Who's knocking at the door? I'm genuinely confused.
What's coming through? What channel is that? Turn them off. They're off. Everything's off. Okay. Am I on?
No.
Are you on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, let's try this again. Maybe. Oh. We're just going to try this one?
Yeah.
Great. Sweet. I'm going to have this one just hanging off my shoulder here. That's great. Baylor Bears are 9-0. I had to say it. And I'm taking a whole group of students out Baylor versus Oklahoma for first place in the Big 12 on Saturday, and I'm really excited about it. So, sorry, I had to get that out of the way. I was screaming at a television all day yesterday. And I wanted to say thank you to any of you who showed up last night at the coffee shop. Ambry was in town, and she and I got to play a little music. And I, through college and then after college, played in a rock band and performed, and that was a very low-key deal for me, but it was a very big deal for Ambry, who had never performed like that before. And so we really appreciate all of you who are able to make it, and we will do it again soon. If you want to get a head start, 1 Thessalonians chapter 2 is where I am this morning. 1 Thessalonians chapter 2, and when I get there, I will be reading starting in verse 6. I'm going to open this morning with one of America's classic films. I mean, I'm throwing it way back, y'all. 2004. Way back. This film is called Mean Girls. Maybe some of you have seen it. If you haven't seen it, I'll give you a quick rundown. There's this girl played by Lindsay Lohan, my childhood crush. And this girl, Katie, it's an all too familiar story. She moves to a new town and has to go to a new high school. And this movie is about her making efforts to fit in with a group of friends, particularly the popular group of girls called the Plastics. And Katie has to fit in with the Plastics because she feels like she needs to be popular or be accepted or be well-liked in order to have some sort of sense of worth. And as the movie progresses and as Katie's character develops into a more mature character, what she discovers is that cliques are stupid and you don't need to fit into any popular group to be valuable. And we get this really beautiful scene at the end of the film where the entire high school comes together and says, oh man, everybody's great. Everybody has value and worth because we're all unique and it's all good and we just love everybody and everybody belongs. And that ending is probably the most fictitious part of the entire film because as a high school pastor, let me tell you, that's not how high school works. But in 2019, what this looks like for our young people is an obsession with social media. And we live in the social media age and the social media culture. And before you older folks say, okay, I'm not listening anymore, this is for the young people, I see most of you on Facebook too. Okay? In fact, some of you older folks on Facebook post more than my students post on their Instagrams, okay? So this is something we're all a part of, and even if you're not directly on this, it's something we're all a part of. We're part of a social media culture, and what happens to our young people, and it's not just high schoolers and middle schoolers, it happens to college students. In fact, it happens to young adults under 30, my age as well, is whether we realize it or not, we subconsciously begin putting our value in how many likes we get on a photograph. And that sounds so stupid, but for young people, it's such a real thing, is that we live in a culture that is so obsessed with image and reputation, and it's come into this social media thing where if you post a picture and it doesn't get enough likes, well, you're not popular and you're not cool and you're not worth anything. And it's just a reflection on our broader culture where we're obsessed with how we look in front of people and how we appear to people and what our reputation is. In fact, just yesterday, Ambry held up her phone and she showed me a girl that she has classes with at Baylor. And she said, "Do you know who this is?" And I said, "No, I don't know that person." And she goes, "That doesn't even look like her." And she opens up this girl's Instagram profile. And I don't say this to say anything awkward. I'm just telling you, this girl in this Instagram profile looks like a model. Her hair is always perfect. Her makeup's always perfect. Her outfit's always perfect. And Ambry's like, "She never looks like that. That's not even her." Like, I sit next to her in class every week, and she's in a t-shirt and baggy shorts, and like, that is not her. But young people get on these Instagrams and Facebook and whatever, and they start comparing all of their flaws to all of the manicured, perfect photographs everybody else puts up. And very quickly, this gets toxic. And they say, "Oh, nobody likes me." In fact, I thought about not even mentioning this because I know I talked about some pretty serious stuff the last time I got up here and preached, but I'll go ahead and say it because it's real life. Studies consistently now from universities and even the Center for Disease Control and Prevention from the United States are proving a correlation between social media use and things like depression and self-harm and even suicide. That's the reality we live in 2019. And I stand here and I think, how could that happen? Like, how could I sit there scrolling through Instagram and get to that point? And then, the Spirit of God and I have a conversation like we do sometimes. And he has me look inward instead of outward at other people. And what I realize is that I too deal with some of these same issues in my life. I care way too much about what other people care for me. I get way too concerned with what other people think about me, whether they like me. And here's what else you need to know about me, a couple of things. One, I'm a mega extrovert. I hate being by myself. It drives me crazy. If I'm by myself for 15 minutes, I feel like I need to run outside and find the closest person and have a conversation. I hate it. Two is I'm a pastor, and I did not, believe it or not, go into ministry because I'm more spiritual than you, and I did not go into ministry because I'm obsessed with the Bible, although I'm trying to work on getting there. I went into ministry because I love people. I love people. My best days in the world are if you invited me out to Molly B's and we could sit across the table from one another and just share a cup of coffee and just tell me your story. Tell me what you've been through, ups and downs, highs and lows, and let's talk about where God intersects that. That's my best day. The other thing you need to know, some of you may be familiar with the Enneagram. If you're not, it's not a big deal. It's the newest personality fad. I'm a 2 on the Enneagram, which is the caregiver. I love taking care of people. And I naturally, inherently feel value when I get to care for people, when I'm needed. But one of my professors at Truett, he used this expression that was the shadow side. Everything good in life has a shadow side to it, he'd say. Everything, the best stuff in life can very quickly become dark or toxic. And what this looks like for me is when, when people don't like me, like, that's not great, but I can probably push through that. When people don't need me, I feel like I have no purpose. If I feel like I'm up here preaching and working and I'm doing my thing and going through life and nobody needs me, all of a sudden I'm like, God, why am I here? And very quickly, I too, like some of these students, like these young people, like these studies are showing, I start wandering into a place of doubt and sometimes depression. Sometimes, what am I doing if nobody needs me? If nobody likes me, why am I here? And then I wonder, do I care too much? Okay, God, maybe I just shouldn't care about people. I just care too much. I should just get over it. And I care so much it leads to heartache. And there's this other myth in our culture that's like, well, you just worry about you. You do you. And sometimes I'm like, yeah, that'd be a lot easier. I'll just do me. And so the question that I have today is, how do I care for people without caring what those people care for me? You tracking with me? I know that was kind of... How do I care for people without caring about what they care for me? Here's what Paul says. 1 Thessalonians chapter 2. I'm beginning in verse 6. We were not looking for praise from people, not from you or anyone else, even though as apostles of Christ we could have asserted our authority. Instead, we were like young children among you. And just as a nursing mother cares for her children, so we cared for you. Because we loved you so much, we were delighted to share with you not only the gospel of God, but our lives as well. Surely you remember, brothers and sisters, our toil and hardship. We worked day and night in order not to be a burden to anyone while we preached the gospel of God to you. So Paul here is writing to the church in Thessalonica, and he's defending the motivations and the practices of himself and his missionary cohort that went and visited in Thessalonica. And they're saying, hey, Paul, what were your intentions? Why did you come plant this church? Why did you give us stuff? Why did you preach to us? Why did you love on us? And I make 3 observations out of this text that I think can help us as we process this question. How do I care for people and yet not care about what they think of me? First of all, Paul says in verse 6, I could have asserted my authority and sought to be liked. The Greek there, when he says that we did not seek this from you, he's literally saying we did not seek good opinion from you. He says, I could have asserted my authority and basically made you like me. I could have asserted my authority and done things just so you would think well of me. He says, but we didn't. And Paul was given special authority from God. That's why we still read what he wrote today. I don't have that authority. You don't have that authority. But here's what we do have. You will have an opportunity in life to do things in order to be liked. You will have an opportunity in life to make decisions just to look good for other people. You will have opportunities to commit to things or to say things just so people will approve of you. And what Paul instructs us is that as Christians, that is no reason to do anything. Our decisions, our actions come from a place of conviction and integrity, not from, well, what's he going to think about that? Or a desire to be liked. Be very careful if you start making decisions for other people. Because most of the time, what I found in life is some of the best decisions I've ever made were not very popular. I mean, I tell students if they're trying to pick a college, I'm sorry I'm going to disappoint a couple of parents in here today. If you're trying to pick where you're going to go to school after high school, that's one of the biggest decisions you're going to make in your life. Last thing you need to do is worry about where mom and dad went or where mom and dad think you should go. What is God saying to you? What have you prayed through? What is going to suit what God has called you to do? Be very careful anytime in life of making decisions for other people. Don't ever do things just to be liked. Secondly, in verse 8, and I love this, Paul makes it very clear that the, hey, you do you, I'll do me, is not the proper stance for a Christian to take. He says, we not only shared the gospel with you, we also shared our whole lives, or our whole selves in another translation, with you. So here's what that means. We are called to share our lives with others, our whole selves, our stories, our actions. We are called to live life in service of others. That implies something. Implies something about the way we do evangelism. Telling someone about Jesus is not enough. Telling someone about Jesus and leading them to the point of saying a prayer, I would argue, is not what we're called to do. Evangelism is commanded by Christ. Go and tell, without question. But Paul says, then you share your life with them. Don't lead someone to water, teach them how to drink, right? True story. When I was looking for a job this past spring, and I interviewed here and I interviewed at a few other churches, I interviewed at a church in Houston. And they asked me a question about altar calls. I said, how do you feel about altar calls, inviting students forward to make a decision for Christ? And I said, I love that, if that's not the last time I see them. I said, because my desire is to disciple students. And this pastor got concerned. Well, aren't you concerned about evangelism? I said, yes, I am. I said, but discipleship means you lead someone to Christ, and then you lead them to a church community, and then you put a Bible in their hand, and then you teach them how to read that Bible, and then you teach them what it means to walk with Jesus. And I have met far too many people who were invited to the front of a church and who said a prayer and who felt good for a day, and nobody contacted them afterwards. It's one of the saddest conversations I've ever heard in my life. I just overheard it. I wasn't a part of it. 2 girls I worked with at a Texas Roadhouse in Waco, Texas. I'll never forget this conversation. Not exaggerating. They're standing right in front of me, and one of them says, "Oh, I didn't know you were a Christian." And the other says, "Oh yeah, I got baptized when I was 8. I haven't been back to church since, but I'm going to heaven. What about you?" "Oh yeah, I said a prayer when I was 5. I should probably go back to church, but I don't think it matters. I mean, I said the prayer. I'm good." That is not where I want to leave people. We want to disciple people. We want to share our lives with them. Hebrews has something to say about this. Hebrews 10, verse 23 and 24 is where I'm going to read. Hebrews 10, verse 23 says, "Let us hold fast to the confession of our hope without wavering." So let's confess. Let's speak, right? Let's proclaim out loud in words, Jesus is Lord. The way to God is through Jesus. 100%. What's the next verse say? The next verse. "And let us stir up one another to love and good works." Paul says, share the gospel, share your life. Do good. You can't just speak it, you got to do it. But then, of course, this question of being liked comes up, and this is where it gets hard. There's a fine and a blurry line between doing good works out of love, out of discipling people out of love for them, and doing it because it makes you feel good, or doing it because it makes you look good, or, well, I want the people at church to think I'm a pretty mature Christian, so I'm gonna go do manna meals this month, right? There's a fine line between doing things because Christ first loved us and doing things because we get some sort of selfish social positioning out of it. And 2 Corinthians 13 calls us to examine ourselves, to look into our heart, and what's the motivation behind what you do? And that leads me to this third thing today, and this is, to me, the most powerful thing in our text. Paul says, just as a nursing mother cares for her child, that's how we tried to care for you. And the first time I really studied this text in depth, I dove into that. I said, what does that mean? That a nursing mother cares for her child, and that's how we are to care for others. What does that mean? I sat with that for a long time. And I think sometimes we get so wrapped up in God being our Father that we forget that men and women were both made in the image of God, and God is our mother as well. And in this text, what we see is that a mother, think about a mother. A mother, first of all, brings a child into the world. And that's a lot of work and a lot of sacrifice and a lot of selflessness. Then the young mother literally gives of herself to the infant, feeding the infant. Then when that infant gets to be a child, what does the mother do? She gives discipline, right? And then when they get to be in my youth group and they're teenagers, the mother gives some curfews and some boundaries and takes away the keys or the phone when she needs to. And a good mother never does any of those things to be liked. A good mother is not concerned with being the cool mom that hangs out with all of her kids' friends. A good mother does these things for no other reason than the fact that she loves her kids. And those teenagers, let me tell you what those teenagers do. Some of you have experienced this. What those teenagers do when mom is selflessly giving and caring, they say, Mom, stop babying me. Mom, stop treating me like a kid. Mom, I don't need you. And then, in a fit of rage on the worst night, this happens. Teenager looks at mom and says, Mom, I hate you. And what does the mom do? She keeps coming back with care and love and exactly what that child needs, because she says, I love you. And I'm going to care and serve you regardless of how much you care about me or how much you like me. And when I say all those things, and as I sat with this, and I said, Spirit of God, what does it mean that we should care for others the way mothers care for their children? I thought of Jesus. And the moment in the scriptures where we see Jesus displaying motherly affection for his best friends. And you know the story. Jesus is 24 hours away from being killed. And he's going to share a last meal with his best friends. And he walks into a room to share this meal, and Jewish custom says, when you walk into a house, the first thing you do is the least in the room gets on their knees and washes everybody else's feet. And Jesus walks into a room, and the disciples are so full of themselves, they all got stinky, gross feet. And Jesus doesn't pick the least and say, get on your knees and wash our feet. Jesus takes off his coat, grabs a basin and a towel, and he goes to work. And he is not worried about what the disciples say. He's just going to do what he needs to do to care for them in that moment. And Peter says, Lord, you can't wash my feet. And Jesus says, I'm going to wash your feet. And then the part that I can't handle every time I read that story, and I've told my students about this twice already, and they're probably going to hear it at least 3 more times before the year's up. It's not directly in the text, but you know it happened. Jesus got on his knees in front of Judas and washed his feet. Not hours before Judas was going to turn him over to be tortured and killed. And in that moment, Jesus did not care what Judas thought of him. He did not care whether Judas liked him or not. He did not care what was about to happen, and he knew exactly what was going on. He got on his knees with a basin and a towel, and like a mother takes care of her kids, no matter what they say back, he washed Judas's feet. And that is how we are called to care for others. Somehow, some way, I am called, you are called to feel deep care and compassion for all of those in your life. All of them. And thanks be to God, because that's what I love doing, as I shared. But we have to do this regardless of what anybody thinks of me, or whether anybody needs me, or whether anybody likes me. We have to care, and we have to show up, and we have to be there. And we can't at any point worry about other people's opinions of us. Earlier this year, Tim Tebow was speaking to reporters as he prepared to play another season of minor league baseball. And he mentioned that the biggest lesson he teaches young people is not to let others define them. Don't let other people define you. Your purpose is not in being needed. Your purpose is not to be liked. Your purpose is not, young people, I love you. Your purpose is not to get 400 likes on your post this week. Your purpose, my purpose, all of our purpose, is to take the disposition of Christ. Take a basin and a towel, and out of nothing else than a motherly love for those in your life, get to work and care and serve and do what's right. May it be so for all of us, and I would ask for your prayers as I do the best to live that mindset out as well. Let me pray for us. Father, you're good, and your goodness blows our mind, and your goodness overwhelms us. And God, we ask that this morning, as we live amidst a culture that says you have to be popular, you have to be liked, you have to fit in, you have to do this and that and the other, God, may we just serve people. May we love people who like us, and may we love people who don't like us. May we love people when it's easy, and may we love people when it's hard. And God, more than all of this, we just want to be like Jesus. And so help that image stay in our mind of a mother caring for her kids and of Christ caring for his friends. And may we replicate that as we go forward from this place. It's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen. If you need prayer or if you need to have a conversation, I'm here, and I'll be here after church is done as well, okay?
Please stand for our
Hey, as you go forward from here, love those around you. And if you need help, let us know. We're here for you, okay? Let's grab hands across the aisle.